Good morning. This is Attorney Lawrence M. Kelly, and I'm the third generation attorney practicing here at the office of Kelly Law Office. It's 25 Public Avenue, which is now known as 65 Public Avenue. The law office was started by John M. Kelly in 1884, and he was the sole practitioner here until 1931, when my father, J. Melvin Kelly, returned from Dickinson Law School and started practicing with his father. And now my mother, Audrey R. Kelly, started off as a secretary in this office back in 1931. And she and my father got married in 1937, and then they lived here in Montrose, and Dad continued to practice, and Mom started to raise a family. Well, my older brother, John M. Kelly, who's people call Jay, is still around, and he was not an attorney, but he lived in Montrose his whole life. And my name is Lawrence M. Kelly, and I'm the second child born, and I was born in 1940. I have a sister. I have a sister whose name is Audrey Kathleen Kelly Curtin, who is an attorney as well, but she lives in Hinsdale, Illinois. I also have a brother, Paul A. Kelly, who was born in 1946 while Mom was at law school at Cornell. And then we have a youngest child was David Terrence Kelly, who was born in 1951. Well, in the 1940s, while Mom was working for Dad in the law office, she thought she might want to go to law school. So the World War II was raging at the time, and because of that, law schools have plenty of room for new students. So she applied to Cornell Law School when was admitted, and she went to law school during the week and came home on the weekends, and ultimately she became an attorney in 1949, and she practiced with Dad from 1949 until about 1961, when she went to Harrisburg to be the insurance commissioner in the cabinet of Governor William W. Scranton. So my brother Paul became an attorney in 1972. And he practiced law in this office from 1972 until 2010, when he retired. Now, as for me, I graduated from law school in 1965 and immediately went into the U.S. Army. So when I got out of the Army in 1967, I practiced here in this office until 1970, at which time I went to Scranton to become an assistant United States attorney for the Middle District of Pennsylvania. I stayed in that position until 1977 and started practicing here again in 1978, and I've been practicing here ever since. In 1980, I became the district attorney of Susquehanna County for 2 terms, with the term ending in 1988. And from that time on, I'd been in private practice here in Montrose. My grandfather, J.M. Kelly, started the firm in 1884, and my father, John Melvin Kelly, joined the firm in 1931. At that point, it became Kelly and Kelly. And it stayed Kelly and Kelly until my grandfather passed away in 1940, at which time it went back to being Kelly Law Office, the Kelly being my father, J. Melvin Kelly. Our mother, Audrey R. Kelly, became an attorney in 1949, at which point the firm became Kelly and Kelly again. It stayed Kelly and Kelly pretty much from then until 2010, when my brother Paul retired. It was just a matter of what Kelly and Kelly. As I said, when my father joined the firm, it became Kelly and Kelly. And then when my grandfather died, and then my mother came on in 1949, Kelly and Kelly again. And then I graduated from law school in 1965, but went straight into the Army. So when I returned in 1967, it was Kelly and Kelly again. Then in 1970, I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Scranton, so it was back to Kelly Law Office momentarily, because my brother Paul graduated from law school in 1972. Now at that point, my father was slowing down considerably, so the Kelly and Kelly was really my mother, Audrey Kelly, and my brother Paul Kelly. I returned from the U.S. Attorney's Office in 1978, after just having retired from the U.S. Attorney's Office in 1977, at which time it was briefly my mother, Audrey Kelly, my brother Paul Kelly, and I. And then shortly thereafter, Mom started taking it easy, so she left the firm and it became Kelly and Kelly, with the Kellys being Paul and me. So this practice started off as Kelly Law Office, and now it's back to Kelly Law Office. And this is probably going to be the end of it because, well, I have two children who are lawyers. Both of them practice in, one in Allentown and one in Philadelphia. And so as I tell everybody, I can't get any of my children to come north of the Lehigh Tunnel, which happens to be a fact, and I can't say as I blame them. So what we're doing today is I'm making this film to give a visual history of the office and describe some of the things that we have here. Because of the number of attorneys and the number of different degrees that we've all attained, we thought it would be a great idea to put them all on the wall of the waiting room. And that's where they are right now. Starting up here from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court certificate admitting me to practice before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and that was in 1965. The one immediately below that is the same admission certificate from the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, and that was in 1969. And below that is the diploma from Villanova University, where I graduated in 1962. Immediately to the right of that is the certificate where I have been admitted to practice before the Supreme Court of the United States, and that was in 1993. To the right of that is a certificate where I was admitted to practice before the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania. That was in 1969, really just before I went into the U.S. Attorney's Office. To the right of that is a certificate where I was admitted to practice before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. That was in 1987. Now the interesting thing about that is that really from 1970 until 1978, I appeared before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit 22 times while I was a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. But at that time, I did not have to be actually admitted because I was a member of the U.S. Attorney's Office. But then in 1987, I started getting cases of my own that ended up in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and so that's why I actually had to get admitted. Next to that, to the right, at the top, is the certificate where my brother, Paul A. Kelly, was admitted to practice before the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. That was in 1972. And below that is my diploma for graduating from Dickinson Law School in 1965. And below that is probably what started it off, and this is the certificate where my grandfather, John M. Kelly, was admitted to practice in the several courts of Susquehanna County. And that is the only certificate that he had. Now, interestingly enough, he did not go to law school. Back in those days, you could, quote, read the law in the office of some other attorney. And once you'd become sufficiently proficient, you'd be admitted to practice before the courts. And that's what happened there. So you will not see any certificates or diplomas from any college or law school for J.M. Kelly, for John M. Kelly. Next to that, at the top, is the certificate where my mother, Audrey R. Kelly, was admitted to practice before the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania in 1949. And below that is a certificate authorizing her to practice, or admitting her to practice, in the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. That was in 1951. And then also in 1951, she was admitted to practice before the United States District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania. Next to that is the diploma from Dickinson College of Law for John Melvin Kelly in 1930. That was my father. Below that is the commission where my mother, Audrey R. Kelly, was appointed as the insurance commissioner for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that was in 1963. Below that is the diploma from Dickinson College of Law from my brother, Paul Anthony Kelly, in 1972. Next to that is the certificate from the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, where my father, John Melvin Kelly, better known as J. Melvin Kelly, was admitted to practice before the Superior Court, and that was in 1930. And then below that is the certificate from the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania from my father again in 1931. And then below that is the diploma from my brother Paul A. Kelly, who graduated from Penn State University. Next to that at the top again is the diploma from Dickinson School of Law, where my father John M. Kelly graduated in 1928. And then below that is the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, where he was admitted in 1949, and then he was admitted to practice in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania in 1942. The last person who became a lawyer was my nephew, whose name is Andrew John Kelly. He's the son of my brother Paul A. Kelly, and his diploma from Dickinson Law School is on the wall, and he lives in California, but he does not practice. Above all of this, you will see a large northern muskie. That northern muskie was caught by my father in Canada in about 1948, and he was so happy about it and so proud of it that he had it mounted, and it's been hanging right there since probably 1950. Elsewhere in the waiting room here, we have somewhat of a museum. Over here is a large cabinet with many mementos of various different times of history that was accumulated by my mother, Audrey R. Kelly, back in 1976. 1976 was the National Bicentennial Celebration, and people were encouraged to do something that would be consistent with recognition of history. So she put this cabinet together with different mementos of all kinds of things, including a letter from Teddy Roosevelt to my grandfather soliciting his support in his presidential campaign. On top of the display case are several stuffed animals, and the stuffed animals were collected by my grandfather, John M. Kelly, and they have been there virtually my entire lifetime. And so I don't know what we're going to do with them, but there they are, and they've been there the entire time. Above this other bookcase behind me are all kinds of mementos, again, that my mother had accumulated. You see a little cannon up here. You see lots of elephants. The significance of the elephants is that my mother was very active in Republican politics for many, many years. And on the local level, on the state level, and even on the national level, she went to just about every Republican national convention for many, many years. Also on the wall is what people find very interesting. It's a map of Susquehanna County, and that map was in 1854. And many clients have come and gone, and they all want to see if they can find their homestead on that map. So that map is a very popular thing for all of the clients. Right here where I'm standing now is the station of one of the secretaries. For many, many years we had 2 secretaries, and at one point we had 3 secretaries, and this is the station of one of the secretaries. This secretary here would be a receptionist, as well as doing many real estate closings and settling many estates and things of that nature. Here on the wall is an 1890 map of Montrose, which has been on our wall for many years. Also on the wall is it looks like a map, and it is. It's an exhibit in a trial that my grandfather, John M. Kelly, had when he represented a defendant who was charged with murder. The trial was in 1889, and this map was used as an exhibit. And he was successful in defending the defendant, who was a not guilty verdict, and so somehow we managed to keep that exhibit around, and so it's been framed for many years, and it's hanging on the wall, and it's right there. Years ago, my mother got the idea that we should modernize the law office. And so Paul and I both said, no, we like it the way it is. We think it's a country law office and looks pretty much like a country law office ought to look. Well, she was watching the television channel 44 auction one time, and someone was an interior designer, and so Mom bid on it and bought the consultation from an interior designer. And the interior designer came to Montrose, came to the office, looked around and said, wow, this is really great. It's a beautiful country law office, and there's only one thing I would do, is I would put a plant over there in that corner next to the window. And so if you look over there by the window, you'll see a plant. And that is the only major renovation, if you will, or an updating of the office pretty much since I've been here. Okay, this is the what we call the middle room, and it's a desk for a secretary, typewriters and fax machines, and you'll notice many file cabinets. These file cabinets were full of real estate files for thousands of clients over many, many years. And on the wall are different certificates that Paul had picked up that have no real personal significance, but they were just interesting things that he found, so that's why they're there. And the most significant thing to me is on the wall over here, it is a sales bill for an executor sale where I was the auctioneer. And I was 18 years old, and the sale was in Kingsley, Pennsylvania on Saturday, February 14th of 1959. We had 23 head of cattle and different farm implements and things like that. It was my first auction sale. I have been an auctioneer over the years, but since I got involved more in the law business and in the U.S. Attorney's Office and raising our children, I did not spend a lot of time auctioneering, but I still maintain my license. One more thing in this office, the Secretary's office, is actually this light string. Now that looks like an ordinary light string, but you'll notice that there's a couple there's a clip on it as well as a paper clip, and anything that comes down from the court or anything that requires absolute immediate attention goes on this light string, and it hangs right there. So if I came in and I saw something hanging on that light string, that would tell me that it required absolutely immediate attention. So if there's such a thing as a panic button in this office, this is it. The office that we're in right now is probably the oldest actual office in the office, if you will. It has been my father and my grandfather and my brother Paul's office over the years, and since 2010 I have been a sole practitioner here, and this is the office that we use for people signing documents. My grandfather was a carpenter back in his early days, and when he first started the law office, as I said, back in 1884, one of the first things he did was to build these bookcases. You'll see there are 3 bookcases. They're all the same, and they're all solid cherry, and they were built by my grandfather, and they have been here ever since. As you can see, the one here is holding law books. These law books are kind of interesting in a sense. This particular edition is from the Pennsylvania Superior Court in 1968. But every time the Superior Court rendered a decision that they thought was worthy of publication, it would be published in these books. And the interesting thing about these books is that while they look very nice, they're totally obsolete as a result of computerized legal research. We just pretty much do not use those books anymore. Along here, on the same wall, is a series of books they call the Digest. Digest, if there was a topic in the law back in the older days back into the 90s, it goes at least to the 90s, that if you wanted to look up a particular topic that was in a case, you would look in these directories here, and that would tell you where in the law books that you would find a particular topic being discussed. But as I say, computerized legal research has made those books virtually obsolete. They're there because it looks like a law office, and that's pretty much the only reason. Over on this wall is another bookcase that was built by my grandfather. Those green books are the Pennsylvania statutes, and they are all of the statutes of Pennsylvania, and they're categorized by topics and so on, and with annotations of different cases again. As of now, computerized legal research has made even that set of books pretty much obsolete. Over here in the corner is a safe. This safe was put in by my grandfather, and again, if you look at the doors around here, I have no idea of how they got that in, and I don't have any idea of how they're ever going to get it out. But at any rate, it says John M. Kelly on the front, and in that safe we have many, many wills of people over many, many years, and other documents that should be kept in a safe. And that's been here for a long time. They call it the allegedly fireproof safe. And we say that because a woman from California had her will here, and she wanted to get it out to be changed, so she had her daughter come in to get it. Well, we told the daughter that we were unable to just give her the will, but that she would come in with a letter from her mother, then we would be able to release it. So the letter that came back from the mother said, I have a will that's in the office of Kelly and Kelly, in an allegedly fireproof safe. So we thought that was a cute line, and we've called it the allegedly fireproof safe ever since. On the desk here is a book that has been very useful in the real estate business over the years. It's an 1872 Atlas of Susquehanna County. Now I happen to have it open right now to the borough of Montrose, and you'll be able to see from that what their depiction of the borough of Montrose was in 1872. And then you see we have all of the other townships in the county and having the owners of the property back in 1872. And they call this the Beers, B-E-E-R-S, Atlas of Susquehanna County. And it's a very interesting document of its historical significance that even remains important today. Okay, right now we are in what I call my office. This is the office where I consult with clients and also answer the phone and check my schedule and things of that nature. On the wall there are numerous items that I think are of significance to me. One over there in the corner is a painting. Margaret Carmazon painted that painting. And it turns out that it was just shortly after Judy and I had been on a trip to Cancun, Mexico, and we went to Chichen Itza, which was an old Mayan ruins and ceremonial site which had many temples and very interesting things. And it was very ironic that the painting by Margaret Carmazon was indicative of what was going on down in Chichen Itza. Next to it on the wall is my commission from the United States Attorney's Office, and that is appointing me as Assistant United States Attorney. It was signed by the Attorney General of the United States, whose name was John M. Mitchell, who attained a lot of notoriety during the Nixon administration. Next to that is a certificate awarding me as a member of what they call the $1 Million Advocates Forum. For many, many years, and concurrently I am a personal injury lawyer, and that is a certificate recognizing the fact that I had a case that was worth more than $1 million. I've had a few of them, but that's a certificate. Next to it is a Pennsylvania Association of Arson Investigators. They gave me an award for having won a very significant case in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania relating to arson investigations. It was a big deal then, it's a big deal now, but they were very appreciative of my efforts and gave me that certificate, or plaque. And next to it is from the Pennsylvania Trial Lawyers Association, what they call the George F. Douglas Award. George F. Douglas was a very prominent member of the Pennsylvania Trial Lawyers Association, and I was a member of what they call Amicus Curiae Committee, of which I'm still a member. What the Amicus Curiae Committee does is to join in on other cases of significance to the trial lawyers of Pennsylvania and our clients. And so I've written several briefs for the Pennsylvania Trial Lawyers Association, and they recognize me as for outstanding advocacy, don't you know? And I was very proud to get that. Next to that, commemorating the fact that in 1976 I was the president of the Montrose Lions Club. Actually, I've been the president of the Lions Club 2 or 3 times, but one of the members back in those days decided that it would be nice if everybody had a plaque, and so there's my plaque. Next to that is an award of appreciation of Susquehanna County. I served as a district attorney of Susquehanna County for 8 years between 1980 and 1988, and that was an award for appreciation. And also, I got an award for being district attorney from the Penn York Police Association, and that's here. And next is another certificate of admission to the United States Court of Appeals for the 6th Circuit. The 6th Circuit actually is in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the reason I got that is that I had a very significant case in Knoxville, Tennessee, where a client of ours from Susquehanna County was actually shot in a robbery down in a motel in Knoxville. And we sued the motel owner for not having adequate protection for guests, and the case actually went to the 6th Circuit, where I was able to really create a lot of new law for the state of Tennessee. Next to that is a certificate of election where I was elected district attorney in 1979 was the election, but I took office in 1980. Next to that is a letter of commendation that I received from the Pennsylvania State Police relating to the fact that I was district attorney. Next to that is a certificate recognizing that I'm a mediator for the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania. Next to that is a certificate with reference to the fact that I was a member of the Board of Governors of the Pennsylvania Trial Lawyers Association from 1989 until 2006. And we met 4 times a year, usually once at a convention in Harrisburg or in Hershey or in Pittsburgh or State College or someplace around the state. Next to that is a certificate that I am what they call a fellow of the Lions Club. The Lions Club International recognizes different people for extraordinary efforts in behalf of the Lions Club, and that's where I've got that. Also, I have my Pennsylvania auctioneer's license. As I said before, I've been a licensed auctioneer since they had to be licensed at all back in 1961. Next to that, also, I've got the Pennsylvania Bar Association's award for being a Pennsylvania Bar President. I was president of the Susquehanna County Bar Association for many years. And after that, a certificate of appreciation from the Susquehanna County 4-H livestock sale. Every year, the members of the 4-H clubs around the county would raise different farm animals like cows and sheep and pigs and things like that. And so on Saturday afternoon they would have an auction sale and sell all of the livestock that they had been displayed at the fair. And all of the auctioneers in the county would show up and take turns selling things. After that is a certificate from the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York. I had a couple of cases which we tried in Binghamton, New York, in federal court, and in order to do that you had to be admitted to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District. Also, I have on the wall here is a flag from hole number 7 of the Montrose Club. We're recognizing that I got a hole-in-one back on August 19th of 2009, and it was hole number 7. And the interesting thing about being hole number 7 is that right next to it on the wall is a watercoloring of that same hole, number 7, at the Montrose Country Club, and I was very happy to have had a hole-in-one. Now, hole-in-one really means that you can hit it that far, because it's just happenstance that it goes in the hole. Next, this desk that I have here is a very significant desk. It's made of solid cherry, and the history of this desk is that it came from the Ballantine Mansion. Percy Ballantine, the owner of Ballantine Beer, which was a very prominent beer for many, many years, had a mansion on what they used to call Loudon Hill, which is a farm south of Montrose. And in that mansion was several items that were sold at an auction sale. Well, my mother went to the auction sale and purchased this desk. Now, this desk, as I say, is solid cherry, and it's very old. I can't tell you the actual origin of it other than the fact that we've owned it since 1950 or something. And it has a big roll top that goes with it. Now, the roll top obviously is not here. It's in storage someplace down at one of our farms. But you could get it out and put it back on the desk if you wanted to. It has all kinds of little drawers and a roll top as you would see on a roll top desk. Okay, so that concludes our visual tour of the Kelly Law Office. It has certainly been a great, great pleasure for me and all members of my family to have practiced here.